Approval of the agenda. Anyone want to make that motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Charlie?
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and approval. Any discussion? And second?
You want me to take roll call?
Yeah, okay, do roll call.
Commissioner Barkus,
Here.
Commissioner Doyle,
Here.
Mike DeBoer is absent, Commissioner Cease,
Here.
Commissioner Chambers,
Here.
Commissioner Davis, Commissioner Plank,
Here.
Commissioner Jeffries,
Here.
and Chairman Reagan is absent.
Okay, we need a motion to approve those absences, right?
Yes.
A motion to approve.
Okay, second?
I'll second.
Okay,
Okay.
got a motion and a second to approve the absences. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, it's been moved. Minutes of the prior meeting. All seen it? Any changes, corrections? Entertain a motion then?
Entertain a motion to approve.
Okay.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, those have been approved. Treasurer's report. Sue.
Not a whole lot to report on since the last meeting. The current balance is $735,822.17, which is a good fund balance to be going forward into next fiscal year. All the TIFA revenue is in, and transfer out has been made to the general fund. So just a little bit in the accounts payable listings I sent, if anyone has any questions on that.
Make a motion to approve.
Okay, it's been moved,
Second.
seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
Okay, public comments on items not on the agenda. Anyone from the public want to talk about things that are not on the agenda? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Old business, housing next.
Yes, I've invited Brooke Osterman. She is the Executive Director for Housing Next to talk about affordable housing. One of the things that this Downtown Development Authority is a brownfield authority also, which means we have the ability to approve brownfield tax credits for development projects anywhere in the city limits. One of the things that's happened in the last year is that the state of Michigan has passed legislation to allow for brownfield tax credits to be used to attract affordable housing and address affordable housing needs in the community. One of the things that we're starting the process of is trying to develop an affordable housing plan for the city where you're going to be involved in this. But Brooke Osterman is here today just kind of do a short presentation about what this actually is. And I'm going to turn it over to her, and she can kind of just give you a kind of a highlight as to what this is.
Sorry, can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Great, okay. So I've had the pleasure of meeting many of you, and even though I'm virtual today, excited to be a part of the conversation, so thank you. As mentioned, my name is Brooke Osterman. I'm the Executive Director of Housing Next. I have been in town a couple of times sharing information, both with the commissions and the planning commission, and so I've had a lot of great questions throughout that process, but just want to give you a high-level overview of our work at Housing Next, and also, of course, specifically the changes to the brownfield legislation around residential development. So first off, if you aren't familiar, Housing Next is a small but mighty nonprofit team that is working regionally in Iowa and Kent County. We are working with municipality leaders as well as developers to really get scalable solutions to the housing shortage and more affordability in the market here in West Michigan. So that looks like creating a revolving loan fund for gap financing at lower interest rates, being subject matter experts on state legislation, including the tax increment financing for residential development, and also the administrative opportunity through Kent County's grant program for municipalities. And so if you aren't aware, there was $500,000 allocated that we are administering in Kent County that can reimburse municipalities for changes that they make either through the master plan process or through zoning ordinance changes that are allowing for more diverse housing typologies, more innovative types of things, and we administer that program. And then just briefly want to make sure that this group is also aware that program was actually mirrored in the state budget, and so there is an additional allocation of state dollars. And we were just on a call with MISTA, the Michigan State Housing Development Authority, yesterday. They would love to see an application from Lowell if there are opportunities for that in the future. And so that is between the two funds up to $100,000 reimbursement if those changes are something you're already talking about and considering. So just wanted to throw that out there. I shared with Mike, we will provide some information after the conversation today. But specific to tax increment financing for residential development, just wanted to update you on a few things. So the change to the brownfield legislation now allows for brownfield tip capture on any property that there is residential development. So the biggest change, there are also some additional eligible expenses, but essentially you don't need to have that development on a blighted piece of property, a contaminated piece of property, the requirements of the previous law that was in place for decades. As long as it is serving a residential purpose, you can use brownfields anywhere. And so what we're really excited about is that developers in our community specifically are really excited about moving affordable housing solutions forward, recognizing that we're 35,000 units short in Kent County over the next couple of years, but they're having trouble making that pencil out. So we know that this tax increment financing tool is going to be a huge asset in meeting those goals. However, of course, we do want to, and the tool requires the local buy-in of the municipality. So if a municipality does not have a brownfield, which of course you all do, but if they don't, right now the county is having conversations about a countywide brownfield. If you have a brownfield and for whatever reason decide, once that's established, that it makes more financial sense, more administrative sense to go through that in some capacity, you are able to do so even if you have an established brownfield. But it is being created for the purpose that there are municipalities, of course, who do not have that infrastructure set up. And so in order for them to use the tax increment financing tool for residential development, the county would need to either step in as the brownfield or each of those jurisdictions would have to create one. Something just to note for all of you is that many of these, the tax increment financing tool was created with affordability metrics built in. And so it is a requirement that the properties that are developed are affordable to households making less than 120% of area median income. And so that obviously is a critical piece of the work when you're looking at teachers, public safety officials, general, population of folks who are struggling to afford housing right now. And then also, of course, when you're trying to attract future residents. So the thing for all of you to note too is that it is able to be layered with other tools. So 3 other pieces of legislation went through. One expands the neighborhood enterprise zone requirements. You also have tax abatements that are now eligible through residential development, and then also payment in lieu of taxes. So many of these tools you've used for other purposes, but again, it does require affordability to be baked in and for the local municipalities to support it. And so those are some of the things you might see kind of come before you in addition to the brownfield request. And we're happy to support however we can in those processes. But folks are likely layering, we're going to have to layer those as we continue to see construction costs and interest rates increase, or at least not decrease as quickly as we would like. And then the last piece I would say too, just for this group, Another layering component that I've shared with the commission and the planning commission is that now in Kent County, we have a revolving loan fund set up. And the reason I bring that up is because you will continue to hear that costs have increased and that developers are struggling. This tool is really set up as a countywide tool so that if you are working with a developer, they can access that fund. It's local capital that was invested at a lower interest rate, and so they can get reductions on that cost of capital that are a couple points below market opportunities out there. So why that matters is if you have someone who's coming to the brownfield and not also having those conversations, we would want to plug them in because we want to ensure that we're dispersing kind of that need and that incentive for that work and increasing levels of affordability as far as we can, especially recognizing the current concerns of constituents. So anything that you want to know more about, again, we can send information or kind of have a conversation about that today. But just wanted to outline some of those dynamics that have shifted as folks start to reach out to all of you and ask for your time and expertise and approval. And that's it for me.
Yeah, just something to think about going forward in our city. You know, we don't have a lot of new developable property that we can build upon. Where like there's other areas of the county where there's a lot of developable property out there. That doesn't really apply to us. What more applies to us is we have a lot of older housing stock, and as people move out of that older housing stock, maybe there's ways to utilize the brownfield credits to try and revitalize those properties and enhance, also making them affordable for the population. That's kind of where I'm kind of seeing this going forward. Also, there are a number of properties in the downtown district that might fall under this, as there's a number of second-story properties that could be rehabbed, and these affordable housing components can be utilized for. So that's really kind of where I see it going forward, because in our city, that's what it's going to be. It's not going to be. I know we have a proposal for 14 new residential units on Washington Street for the Planning Commission Monday night, but other than that, there's really only a couple other parcels in the city that can really even be developed. So, that's where we're thinking about it.
That's a good point, Mike. And just one of the things that I would say on that front is every tool that I just mentioned, explicitly laid out not only new construction but rehab and preservation. And so that was really intentional, both in the tax increment financing tool, the revolving loan fund, tax abatements, all of that. So the two requirements are either new construction or preservation, rehab, and then also, of course, maintaining levels of affordability. So thanks for highlighting that, Mike.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to give you an overview, kind of just an idea what we're going to be looking at here in the very near future. I think the next steps is me to sit down with Housing Next to figure out how we put this plan together. And we're going to be working with the Planning Commission, the City Council, and the DDA as we move forward on that. So
We can do it for any part of the city?
Yes.
It doesn't have to be within our district?
no, because you function under Michigan statute. The Downtown Development Authority can function as a brownfield authority.
No?
So we created the brownfield authority under the premise that the entire city was a brownfield.
Okay.
So any property that comes into the city, or any property that comes in front of this, even if it's not in the district, you can function. If we had that happen, we would actually have like a meeting that is the brownfield authority meeting, but it's the same board.
Can you explain the difference between just a regular area versus the brownfield? It sounds like it used to be a contaminated area or something. What's the defining characteristics to call something, to have something fall under this authority?
So in this scenario, correct me if I'm wrong, Brooke. So normally the way the brownfield authority was created was we allowed it for any property that might have some sort of contamination or needed some sort of mitigation. We created the district to allow. Basically, we said the whole city's a brownfield, and that's how we formed our district. But under the new statutes that have been put into place, if you have an older house that needs rehabilitation, or maybe multiple houses or mixed use, or maybe for example, somebody buys a parcel And rather than putting, having a house on it, maybe they tear the house down and they want to put a duplex in, which meets our zoning requirements. The credits can be used to help them mitigate those costs to build the property and keep it at an affordable rate for whether it's a rental or an ownership type opportunity.
That's correct. Yep.
So that's where this falls. But I mean, this statute came into place probably like 9 months ago, and when I
Yep.
saw that, it was like, okay, we need to move on this. So I've been working quite a bit over the last, just trying to get this started, and hopefully the next year and a half, we can put a plan in place that we can maybe start seeing some benefits from in the future.
And these are grants or funds available to the owner of the property?
Yeah, so the way it works is it's a tax credit. So basically, they can utilize the tax capture of that property towards the development of the parcel. And one of the one thing that's allowable with brownfield tax increment financing is you can use the school's tax collection, which is 24 mils. Or 18 and, was it 8 mils, 7 mils?
Low schools operate as 9 mils, summer and winter, so 18 total.
Yep,
And
18.
then they have the debt millage.
Right, so all of that millage can be captured off that property towards the development of it.
Yeah, and it is just the increment, the increase
Right.
that can be captured. So if, for instance, the home, whatever the new value is, that difference between that and your original value is the tax that is eligible to be captured back. So not all, you would still, as a municipality and school district, all those things, you would still maintain the current taxable value. So whatever you're getting in taxes, you keep getting. But then you would allow for a portion of the new capture, the new taxes that are created because of the redevelopment, to go back to pay for the project, to allow for deeper levels of affordability. And then, of course, that is a term that you would create. And so after that term that you agree to on the project, all of the tax capture of the new value would come to the municipality.
Any other questions?
You're not talking a lot of dollars then, right?
I mean, depends on
If it's a blighted property, it's not gonna sell for a huge amount, will it? So,
well, they have to meet there's certain requirements that they have to meet that in a brownfield plan, what they're gonna sell it at. They can't sell it at overarching profit. That's why the credits are being brought into place to keep that cost down, to make it
Yeah.
affordable. That's how it's set up. So like you couldn't say you bought a property for $50,000, you put $300,000 in it, you sold it for $500,000. Let's just hypothetically say that you couldn't sell it for $500,000, and you'd have to sell it. You'd sell it for less, but that's where as the time evolves, you set a period of time of how much increased tax value that will generate, and that money can be used to the developer to help them get their costs down. That's how it works.
okay.
Yep, and we have had some questions about that in the past, and I would say that is a critical point, that they are going to have to sell that unit for less than 120% of AMI for the county, for the local community, right? So that's not like a statewide number. And you can actually determine you want it less. So if you were like, we really are struggling to get folks housed who are making 80% of AMI, et cetera, you can put further limitations on it, but it has to be below market rate. And just to give you some understanding of what that means, in West Michigan, in Kent County, specifically in Lowell, we're talking about households that make up to $100,000, right? So folks are really, really struggling to have access to the market, affordability. They're very cost burdened. They're having trouble with mobility in the market. And so there is a lot of flexibility there, but they're not going to be, putting hundreds of $1,000s into something and getting $500,000 back for it. That's just not going to be within the parameters of the plan, to my point.
Does this help, like, say one of the business owners owns their building, but the second floor is a disaster, and they want to fix it up and then rent it out? Is this
Yes.
program accessible for them?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
It's for residential purposes, of course, but because you're a brownfield, you can have those conversations outside of residential, but
Yep.
residential, yes.
Yep. Any other questions?
Okay, this is just FYI.
This is FYI, no action needed to be taken, we're just giving you the, some information, and I will send you, she has a PowerPoint that I'll share with you once she sends it to me, so, thank you, Brooke.
Thank
Yes, thank
you.
you all, have a great day.
You too.
Flat River Fountain request for proposal.
Good afternoon. So the Department of Public Works requested an RFP on March 11th to solicit qualified bids to install fountains on the Flat River. As you know, you budgeted about $30,000 for that project. 2 responses were submitted by the deadline and publicly opened on April 17th. However, we only had 1 response that met the qualification, so we had to reject the other. Summit Landscape Management of Marne, Michigan was the qualified bid for an amount of $28,850. And they proposed to install 2 Aqua Master Volcano 3 fountains, each are 1.5 horsepower with color changing lights, which I think is what was anticipated by the DDA. Fountains can be operated with an Android compatible device in tandem or separately and can run through various spray patterns and lighting. The capabilities of the fountains are they can spray up to 5 foot high and 12 foot wide. You get various spray patterns out of the product that they're proposing. So funds in the amount of $30,000 are budgeted in your account for this fiscal year. And below I try to answer some questions for you. If Summit Landscape will, if awarded, Summit Landscape will work with the city and staff to apply for any necessary permits. This is one thing we're still trying to sort out, is whether or not we need a permit to install these on the Platte River. So both Summit and myself have reached out to Eagle and we've not yet got a response back. Worst case scenario though, we'd have to apply for what's called a joint permit from Eagle. And then that would determine whether or not we can move forward with this or not. We propose that the permit fees be paid for by the DDA. Pending the permit issuance and contract award, Summit Landscape anticipates a 4 to 7 week install time. Let me scroll down here a touch. I've lost control of my computer. The fountains will be connected to the power panel at the showboat. Public Works staff will be trained to operate that system once it's installed. And then they also recommend that we operate the fountains between the months of April to October. Obviously, winter ice would affect the operation of the fountains, so the vendor doesn't want us to operate the fountains during the winter. Energy consumption is going to be based on hours used. We tried to anticipate what the energy would be for cost purposes, but since we don't know how long they're going to operate, we couldn't really apply a very good number to it. And on the warranty side, they have a 5-year parts and labor warranty, and the lighting carries a 3-year warranty. So my recommendation then is that the DDA award Summit Landscape Management of Marne, Michigan, a contract to install 2 fountains in the Platte River as proposed for a budget of $28,000 and some change. I can't get back up there. $28,850, I think is what it was.
Yeah, that's what's in here.
Okay.
Are those pulled from the river every year then?
Yep, they'd have to be pulled and winterized.
And do you do that? Or
Well,
do they?
So they have a couple of options for us. One, they could get into a surface maintenance contract for us, and then we pay them to do it, or they can train DPW staff to do it. From everything I've seen, it looks pretty simple. We just got to get out there and get it and pull it back in and then store it after we clean it up and store it someplace dry over the winter. So potentially we could do it with Department of Public Works staff.
Have you seen one of theirs?
I have not seen one, no.
Do they have any local municipalities or local areas where you can see one?
I think they gave us a list in the RFP of where they have them installed, and I can get that for you if you want to see them. They did say also, by the way, that those will operate in a vegetative environment because of the impellers on them will actually chew up the vegetation. And so that was promising for us because we know we have issues of weed growth on the river. So that was
I have a
good.
couple concerns. One is wildlife habitat. Any interruption with that? I mean, I know that when Lowell Township built their park, they had to do a study on, I don't remember what it was, but wondering if there's going to be any response from Eagle about that concern.
I can ask that when I get in touch with you.
Right. And then the other one, I noticed the map on where the proposal to put them, and F2 is right by where the stage is, and a lot of pontoons and canoes and kayaks right along that area during the concert series.
Yeah, there's opportunity to move it maybe to the west and south.
West and south.
Yeah, more next to the showboat, but further up the river. This was just their proposal at this point. We can finalize all the details later. But it noted that that is a popular spot.
All right.
It's also a hidden spot. When you think about the stage being there, it's directly behind the stage. It's not going to be seen during those months because we've got a stage sitting there from May through September. Just a thought. I mean, it looks pretty without picturing a stage right there.
Yeah, I don't think the vendor understands how we use that property.
Right.
And so when they
They just
provided
do it
this
up.
map, they just drop
Yeah.
something in.
One thing too, with whoever the final placement ends up being, I would be concerned about is canoes and kayaks and pontoons do make that loop, so we want to make sure we're giving them enough. I mean, it's tight in there already,
Yep.
so that there's still room for people to be using the river. And then the other question I had was, are they going to install a separate meter on the showboat power panel?
No, we'll just hook it to the showboat panel and then we'll figure out some kind of a deduct based on the energy consumption. So we have the factors involved for the energy consumption. We just didn't know in terms of hours of operation what that would be. But we can certainly do some sort of a deduct or a payback of that.
Because I know the showboat committee didn't know anything about this. So.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you for the comments.
You went with 2 fountains instead of 1?
Well,
Because
2 fits in the budget, and actually the vendor that we had to disqualify offered 3 fountains. But because he didn't meet the requirements of the RFP, we had to disqualify him. So I understood when I came here that it was at least 2 as well as being looked for.
And it's supposed to help keep the vegetation down around that area.
That's
like
the idea.
goal of it.
Yep, keep the water moving, flush out some of the debris, aesthetically pleasing as well.
Okay, does anyone want to make a motion, yea or nay?
Could I make a comment on this? I'm part of the showboat committee,
Okay,
and I have one concern, major concern is, how are you gonna get the power from the showboat? And where are you gonna tie into the showboat? And how come the showboat committee was not informed of this? Now, for everybody, you may not know this, the city deeded the showboat to a committee. We set up a 501c3 LLC. So really the city, the way I understand it, I'm not a lawyer or anything, has nothing to do with the showboat. It's an entity in itself. So this was a curve from left field for us on the board. And I don't understand how this is all going to work. You know, you said that you're going to compensate the showboat, okay, but shouldn't you have asked the showboat if you could have their permission?
I'll be honest with you, I didn't even think of it.
Well,
I should have, but I didn't think of it, I'm
okay,
sorry.
it'd be like me going to your house
Mhm.
and putting something outside your house and saying, I want to use your power and I'm going to
I
compensate.
get that. I didn't think about it, I apologize.
Well, apologies are fine, but it's,
There was no ill intent.
Is there an alternative?
I understand that, but
We might have to look at one.
there's a concern. There's 3 members here out of 7 members. And I think it would have been right that we were approached so we could decide as a business what we want to do with this. I mean, if you're going to run your own meter, it has nothing to do with us. But the way I understood that, there's a panel on the shoulder. And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if you had a plan, but you would tap into that panel and run something underwater to these fountains.
Yeah.
Right? And put the right breakers in the panel if there is enough power in the panel.
So we did have the vendor come and look at the panel. He looked and he thought there was enough space there. If we need to, we can pull off the sub panel and put its own meter if that's a major concern. And that way the bill comes directly to the DDA for that operation. And then getting power out to it is a braided cable. It's reinforced steel so that it can't be cut, and that would power the fountains.
Are we underwired to approve this now, or do you guys want to have a table so you can work out those details?
That's fine. If you want to table it, we can table it, come back.
What's the difference in cost if we were to do a sub-panel and it goes directly, the bill comes straight to the city versus taking it out of the shovel?
So I'd have to get hold of Light and Power and find out what a sub panel a meter would cost, and we'd have to have an electrician work the sub panel.
Because this is under what we budgeted anyway.
It is, yeah.
So we could easily do that and then power's going straight to the city.
I wouldn't imagine you would exceed that budget by a lot, but I don't know what an electrician costs these days for a sub panel.
Pretty sure it's gonna exceed a little bit.
You're gonna have a ready-to-serve
It's good as
fee every month, like we have 2 meters at the showboat, so we have 2 of those. So you're gonna clear that every month, ready to serve, and then whatever the cost would be during the summer months to run the fountain. We are meeting next Tuesday, the board is, and it's gonna be part of our discussion, Rich, if you wouldn't mind attending that. It's 2 o'clock, I'll send you an invite. We can discuss that. I think there's room to work that we can make this work for everybody, and come to a conclusion next week on half of our board of allowing it or not allowing it. But, we can have some good conversations to clarify that and move forward it.
I think we wait until their meeting happens
Yeah,
and
let's
then, so
table
we
it.
table it to the next
Let
meeting.
you guys work out the details and then come back.
I think we also need to know from Eagle too. I mean, the river is a tricky thing to work with as far as what can we put in it, correct? I mean, I think those details need to be sort of laid out for us before we can say yay or nay. Because if they're, the state decides to charge us X number of thousands of dollars to stick something in the river, and I don't know.
Right.
Mike, I'm sure you know better than I do on that, but.
Any idea how long before you might hear from them?
State of Michigan?
I emailed Eagle probably a month ago, trying to figure out, do we need a permit? What is the permit required? There was some documentation in the files I received from the previous director that a permit wasn't needed, but I just wanted to make sure for myself, so I reached out again. So yeah, it's been at least a month, and then the vendor also tried to reach out too, and they haven't heard back either, so.
Here's what I don't want to see happen. Us approve it, have them be ready, give them a deposit, and then suddenly Eagle forgot that you have to have some type of snail study, like Lowell Township ran into 15 grand in cost for their study before they could do the park.
That's why we table it and move on.
Yes.
Let's move on.
Okay.
Do we need a motion to table?
Yes, you do.
Someone want to make a motion to table this?
I'll second.
Second. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, we table it. Bring it back to us when you got all the details.
We'll do.
Go
Go ahead.
New business, Williams and Works, Riverwalk refresh.
Yep.
I'm Malia Rakestraw. I'm a landscape architect at Plans and Works. I know I've talked with you mostly during the visioning sessions, the master plan. So just for everyone's background, I hang out with our planning group and our engineering group a lot. I help with physical design of places for planning, concepts, things like that, engagement. But, you know, I also take things from concept through construction with our engineering group. So a little bit of background on that. So Katie Mendez in our office, engineering record for you guys, approached me about this project a few months ago. We met with Rich and talked through some of the just general, you know, some of the potential improvements for the site, you know, in terms of things like maintenance and mobility. But I had a lot of questions. And so really what I'm here today to talk to you guys about is, it's my understanding that you would like a proposal for potential improvements to the Riverwalk. And so I just want to get an idea from you all where you were seeing this process going, you know, what types of levels, the extent of the project, those types of things. So I guess just first things first, Mike, you got this map pulled up here. I want to confirm the extents of where you guys are thinking. So is this, you know, from Maine to Avery, Maine to the boat ramp? You know, does this include potentially across the street at the trailhead? Those types of things. So
Technically, Riverwalk Park goes all the way from King Street to Main Street. What really was being proposed is, you know, the Riverwalk's 20 years old at this point, so basically that's what the plan was put in place for, was to start thinking about the future of what we might want to do with the Riverwalk as this start, you know, as the site ages. One, there's going to have, at some point, we're going to have to do some sort of refreshment to it. But ultimately, what do we want to, you know, what do we want to see in the future?
And to that point, you know, there's a couple of processes we can go through. Is this more of a visioning study to, you know, figure out the long-term picture for this space? Or are you looking for something that's very specific that you want to see built out in the next year or two? So I'll hand that back to the whole group just to kind of generally talk about this as well.
My thought's probably more visioning at this point, because figure out what it's going to be. It's really hard to put specifics in place because we don't know what those are.
Okay. All right. So this is more of a master plan for this park in particular,
Yeah.
for potential future improvements. Okay. And has the DDA talked about this kind of in depth yet, or is this more of your first opportunity to dive into this? Okay. That's helpful.
This is the first time.
Well, yeah, it's even almost with preliminary stuff. I haven't even got a proposal put together for you guys. But that'll be helpful for me. So if this is going to be more of a visioning process, for me, because this is a really significant place in your community, I would imagine you'd likely want to talk to the community about this. Okay. Any idea in terms of the level of input you'd like to see? I know we're doing the master plan right now, so that does give us a little bit of additional background. Your Parks and Rec plan is pretty new too, but. Or I can propose a few different options that you guys can weigh. I think that would be yeah.
And does this fall into the Parks and Rec under that category, or is this not considered park?
It's deemed a park, but we're dealing with this separately.
Okay. The Parks Authority or Parks, I don't know.
They could weigh in at some point, but yeah, we're looking at it from the Downtown Development Authority. What's it?
Sorry, not a question, I just wanted to state, obviously with the number of events that the chamber hosts along the Riverwalk, you know, visioning sessions and stuff, you know, I'm happy to join in to any of those conversations.
That's excellent, thank you.
I see this conversation as being longer.
Oh, absolutely, not just today.
Oh, no, yeah, this is just.
Yeah, no, this is, no, I agree.
Okay. So we'll talk about things like overarching goals when we move through this process. We don't need to talk about that a lot today. So again, is the extents, we're talking about the entire park. Talked about the level of design being conceptual. Do you guys want to start getting into things like cost for specific areas, or is that something maybe we'll talk about while we move through this process?
I think down the road, we probably want, I mean, today, no.
No, not today. Okay. And then in terms of timeline, we talked about it maybe being a lengthy budget, or not budget, process, just to make sure we're talking with people. Is there any specific dates, deadlines, grants that you guys are looking to pursue?
At this point, no. Like I said, we're in really beginning phases of this. We're really conceptual at this point. So there's really not like a hard deadline.
Sure.
One date we might want to keep in mind, Mill's going to turn 200 in 2031. So presumably we'll want to have some sort of events around that. It's a little early to start planning any of that, but we might want to not have this all torn up that year.
Okay, yeah.
Have it done by that year.
Yeah.
Celebrate the bicentennial.
That would be the idea.
When we
Mike,
did
would there be a
this,
study done on
it was a
this?
couple of years in the making before they even put a shovel in the ground.
Right.
Mike, would there be a study done of what's causing some of the heaving and sinking of the property? Is it affecting under the river that's causing some of those areas to get lower and then some get higher? I mean, when I walk it, I notice there's definitely some heaving in that part of it. So what might be causing some of that as you go forward to the building? And it's not that's a huge heave, but anytime it starts sinking and stuff like that, part of it is the erosion underneath the riverbank occurring. And what we got to do.
Probably wouldn't be a bad idea.
I'm just putting that out there. I just don't know what's causing it.
We can include things like soil borings just to get a preliminary engineered review of some of that. I will say too, the difference between the hard and soft shorelines makes a big difference in stability. The farther north you go on Riverwalk, you don't have as much of that, settling and heaving. But then again, that's also newer spaces. Whereas opposed to when you get closer downtown, that's just more likely because of the age of the facilities, and then also again, having those hard shorelines too. You're kind of fighting with the edge of the water there. So, okay, so we can do some exploration there. In terms of things like budget for this process, is there anything set aside for this yet, or?
We've budgeted $20,000 at this point.
Okay. Is that all from the DDA?
Yes.
Okay. So the contract would be with the DDA then?
Yes.
Okay. Is the city providing any additional funding or future contributions?
Probably if it came be from the DDA.
Okay.
Shouldn't this conversation be just the two of you?
I agree.
Oh,
Yeah.
apologies. I'm just trying to get a good grasp of some of this. So, is there anything else you want to communicate to me in terms of even just ideation ahead of some of the things that you think you'd like to see in the future? Topics you want to talk about with the community?
Probably not at this meeting,
Okay.
but thanks for opening our eyes.
Sure.
Something to think about for sure.
Yeah, it's a lovely space, and I know again it's very significant to your downtown. So this should be a good process that I'm sure the public will be interested in. So
I think it would be good to incorporate the Showboat Committee, Chamber of Commerce, everything, because there's a lot of stuff along that river front, and it could, obviously $20,000 is not going to go very far. So it's obviously going to take multiple funding sources, or maybe not multiple funding sources, but input from the other organizations that do border it.
yeah, when we're crafting our process and our proposed scope, we'll make sure that we're including opportunities for all of those groups to be part of the process. I will say, just generally too, with the budget, we can work with what you have. So, our process can meet with what you need, and we can tailor that to be maybe a little bit more efficient if we need to be more budget conscious, or if you guys are looking for, something a little more extravagant for maybe visionary purposes, getting people excited. We can offer those to you as options, so you can add those on as we move forward. So, okay.
Let's put this topic on future agendas so we just keep talking about it at a regular basis.
Sure.
So you can build it.
Okay. We'll work on putting a proposal together for you. If there's anything else you have, feel free to let Mike know. I'm sure he'll reach out to us. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Earl Washington Street loan.
Yep. At the April 15, 2024 City Council meeting, the City Council approved USDA, U.S. Department of Agricultural financing, and to proceed with the construction on Washington Street. As a result of many issues, the City Council agreed to raise water rates by 9.66% over the next 6 fiscal years and sewer rates by 9.66% for the next 3 fiscal years and by 4% the following 3 years. This rate increase was spread gradually over a 6-year period to meet our revenue requirements to operate and maintain our water and wastewater systems, along with meeting our needs to currently finance Washington Street along with our previous financing on Monroe Street. We also accounted for all capital projects to the Water and Sewer Fund for the next 6 years, and our rates were designed to meet these needs. What we didn't account for at the moment are costs for the future water and wastewater treatment facility upgrades, which will be coming in the next few years. We are still working through this issue. When the City Council approved rate increases, I was directed to seek grant funding for future projects if possible and do everything we can to minimize the rate increases as projected. There was a recent release of funds for water projects. These funds are loans which do call for forgiveness. However, we don't meet the qualifications deemed by the state of Michigan of being a significantly overburdened or overburdened community, meaning we will not receive loan forgiveness for these funds. We had our budget work session for City Council on Monday, April 29th, and someone asked me why DDA funds couldn't be used for the bond payments on Washington. Thinking the DDA only applied to one block from Maine to Avery, I didn't think anything of it and felt it would be of minimal impact. Shortly thereafter, it dawned on me that the DDA district on Monroe extends from Kent Street to King Street, and this might be possible. This is something I never thought of in the past because you usually don't hear of DDAs doing this, although it would be legal as it is a public improvement within the district. Last Tuesday, I realized that the DDA district on Washington Street goes from Front Street to High Street. I started calculating how much of the water of the Monroe and Washington projects were in the DDA district. 45% of the linear footage of the sewer project for Monroe is in the DDA, and 36% of the linear footage on Washington is in the DDA district. If we calculate these percentages toward the annual debt payments, the DDA could legally contribute $82,692.45 toward the annual sewer debt and $38,831.36 of the water debt. This totals $121,523.81 in payments. The DDA has these funds and the ability to commit these percentages on an annual basis. I presented these numbers to the city's financial advisor, Warren Kramer from Municipal Financing Consultants, and he evaluated if the DDA contributed this amount, this would reduce the water payment for the next 6 years from 9.66% to 9.16%. This is a minimal 0.5% savings annually for water. However, for the sewer, we could reduce the sewer rates for the first 3 years from 9.66% to 6.5%, and for the remaining 3 years, keep the rate at 6.5%. This is less than the annual sewer increase of 7% for the last 2 years. This action would impact every ratepayer in the city by seeing some relief to the proposed increases. We are looking in the future into having the DDA contribute towards the water and wastewater plant expansions. The wastewater treatment facility is in the DDA district and the water treatment facility is outside of it. I'm looking at revising the TIF, the tax increment finance plan, to include the water plant into the district and extending the DDA's expiration date to 2063. There is still possibility the DDA could contribute a portion of this without adding the facility to the district. That said, there's a great deal of work amongst the city and Lowell Township before we can bring the DDA into that portion of the process. Bringing the DDA into this project will help all properties in the district with not as high of a rate hike for water and sewer. If we receive grants for